In Bangladesh, trains can become so crowded during major holiday rushes that passengers are sometimes seen riding on the roof. But that is only the beginning. Beyond Dhaka's packed streets lie shifting rivers, disappearing land, ancient crafts, massive gatherings, wild Bengal tigers, and a way of life shaped by extremes. This is the Bangladesh most tourists never see. Overcrowded trains. During the holiday rush. At first glance, it looks almost impossible. A train leaving Dhaka, completely packed, with passengers visible on the roof. Yet scenes like this can still appear in Bangladesh during the most intense holiday periods, especially around Eid, when huge numbers of people leave major cities to reunite with their families. The scale helps explain the pressure. Recent reporting describes Bangladesh Railway as carrying roughly 250,000 passenger journeys on a normal day, with about 400 passenger trains operating nationwide. During major holidays, demand can rise far beyond the seats available. In March 2026, crowds at Dhaka Airport Railway Station grew so heavy ahead of Eid al-Fitr that some travelers were again seen climbing onto train roofs despite official restrictions. The pressure continued ahead of Eid al-Adha. For departures from Dhaka on May 23, 2026, Bangladesh Railway allocated 31,240 seats. By 6 in the evening on the first day of advance sales, 29,234 tickets, around 93%, were already sold. Nationwide, more than 48,000 tickets were sold that day. Authorities also planned 10 special passenger trains and permitted standing tickets equal to 25% of lower-class seating capacity. But these images need context. Riding on train roofs is dangerous and prohibited, and it does not represent every railway journey in Bangladesh. The most extreme scenes are linked to exceptional surges such as Eid and major gatherings like Bishwa Ijtema near Dhaka, where overcrowded trains have also been documented. This is not simply a story about a crazy train. It is a transport network confronting a massive wave of people trying to reach home at the same time. On the busiest travel days, the gap between demand and available space is impossible to ignore. Dhaka. Life inside a crowded megacity. Dhaka does not ease you into its rhythm. Step onto the street, and the city feels alive from every direction. Buses drizzling through narrow gaps, rickshaws ringing their bells, motorcycles weaving between lanes, street vendors calling to customers, and thousands of people moving at once. The scale is difficult to imagine. United Nations data for 2025 lists Dhaka's capital city population at more than 20 million, while a newer UN urbanization method places the wider continuous urban area at roughly 37 million people. Under that definition, Dhaka ranked as the second most populous city in the world in 2025. Different boundaries produce different totals, but every measure points to the same reality. This is one of the planet's largest concentrations of people. That density is most visible on the roads. A journey of only a few miles can become a long battle through intersections packed with buses, cars, three-wheelers, bicycles, and rickshaws. For millions of residents, planning the day often means planning around traffic. But Dhaka is changing. Its first metro line has become a major escape from the streets below. By late 2025, more than 400,000 passengers were using the Uttara to Motijheel route each day. Authorities said expanded service could push daily ridership beyond 500,000. In the 2026 to 2027 budget, Bangladesh also reaffirmed plans for a future network of 6 mass rapid transit lines, alongside electric buses and better integrated ticketing. And this is what makes Dhaka fascinating. The congestion is real, but so is the transformation. Beneath the elevated metro, old rickshaws still pass modern towers. Traditional markets operate beside shopping centers and construction sites. Dhaka can feel overwhelming, yet for the people who live here, this chaos is also a learned daily routine. A country shaped by rivers. To understand Bangladesh, you have to understand water. Look at the country from above, and the landscape appears almost stitched together by rivers, canals, wetlands, and countless smaller channels. Here, water is not simply part of the scenery. It has shaped where people live, how they travel, what they eat, and how entire communities survive. Bangladesh sits at the lower end of the enormous Ganges, Brahmaputra, and Meghna river system. According to recent World Bank documents available in 2026, the country contains floodplains created by more than 400 rivers and channels. About 1/4 of Bangladesh lies less than 1 meter above sea level, while roughly half is less than 6 meters above sea level. For generations, these waterways have functioned like natural highways. Passenger launches, ferries, fishing boats, and cargo vessels connect communities separated by water. In some rural areas, reaching a market, school, or neighboring settlement can involve a boat journey rather than a drive. But Bangladesh's rivers provide much more than transportation. Their floodplains support agriculture and fishing, while enormous quantities of water and sediment continually reshape the delta. During a normal monsoon season, roughly 20 to 30% of the country can be inundated. This seasonal flooding can replenish farmland, but stronger floods can also destroy crops, damage homes, and accelerate riverbank erosion. That creates one of Bangladesh's greatest contradictions. The same rivers that provide food, transportation, fertile soil, and livelihoods can also threaten the communities built beside them. And the landscape never truly stands still. Channels shift, riverbanks retreat, and new sediment can create land elsewhere. In Bangladesh, geography is not something permanently fixed on a map. In some places, the rivers are still rewriting it. Living with floods and riverbank erosion. In Bangladesh, a river can be a source of life one season and a force that redraws the landscape the next. Along the Jamuna, Padma, Meghna, and other major rivers, flooding and erosion are not distant environmental issues. They can determine where a family lives, works, farms, and even whether the ground beneath a home will still exist years later. The World Bank estimates that floods and riverbank erosion affect about 1 million people in Bangladesh every year, although the number can rise sharply during severe disasters. In 2024, eastern Bangladesh experienced its worst flooding in more than 3 decades. United Nations reports said around 5.8 million people across 11 districts were affected, while more than 500,000 people moved into evacuation shelters. More than 7,000 schools were closed, disrupting education for well over 1 million children. Riverbank erosion creates a slower but equally serious challenge. Currents can eat away farmland and settlements, forcing families to relocate. Along the Jamuna, one of the world's most dynamic rivers, erosion displaces thousands of people in some years. New sandbars and islands, known locally as chars, may appear elsewhere, creating an unusual cycle in which land can disappear in one place and emerge in another. Bangladesh has responded by developing flood shelters, stronger embankments, early warning systems, and resilient roads. In 2025, the World Bank approved $270 million for flood recovery and future resilience, including 79 multi-purpose shelters designed to serve as primary schools during normal weather. Yet daily life continues around this uncertainty. Farmers return to fields, boats reconnect isolated communities, and families rebuild. In these river regions, adapting to water is not an occasional emergency plan. It is part of everyday life. Rickshaws, moving works of art. In the crowded streets of Dhaka, one vehicle immediately stands out. It has 3 wheels, no doors, and in its traditional form, no engine. But what makes the Bangladeshi rickshaw extraordinary is not simply how it moves. It is what covers almost every visible surface: art, flowers, birds, tigers, imaginary animals, movie stars, national heroes, landscapes, historical scenes, and brightly colored patterns can all appear on a single vehicle. Add plastic flowers, tassels, shiny decorations, and hand-painted panels, and an ordinary form of transportation becomes something closer to a moving gallery. Rickshaws remain deeply connected to everyday life in Dhaka. Bangladesh's latest periodic report to UNESCO states that around 300,000 rickshaws can be found in the capital. Yet the industry is changing. A study published in January 2026 found that more than 85% of surveyed pedal rickshaws and more than 97% of battery-powered rickshaws operated outside formal registration systems, highlighting the enormous challenge of regulating this transport network. But the traditional rickshaw is more than transportation. In December 2023, UNESCO inscribed "Rickshaws and rickshaw painting in Dhaka" on the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. The organization describes these decorated vehicles as a form of dynamic urban folk art and a roaming exhibition visible throughout the streets. The skills behind them are traditionally passed from experienced craftsmen to apprentices through hands-on training. Painting knowledge may also move through families from one generation to another, and that tradition now faces a changing city. Battery-powered vehicles, buses, cars, and expanding metro lines are transforming transportation. UNESCO noted again in 2026 that modern travel has reduced some of the everyday experiences once associated with traditional rickshaw rides. So when one passes through Dhaka, it carries more than passengers. It carries a piece of Bangladesh's living cultural history. Bishwa Ijtema, when Tongi becomes a sea of people. Imagine standing beside a river and seeing the landscape disappear beneath an enormous gathering of people. This is Bishwa Ijtema, the famous Islamic congregation traditionally held on the banks of the Turag River in Tongi, just north of Dhaka. For decades, the event has attracted Muslim devotees from Bangladesh and many other countries for several days of sermons, prayer, and religious reflection. The gathering has been held at Tongi since 1967, and its final prayer, known as the Akheri Munajat, can draw particularly enormous crowds. The scale was clearly visible in 2025. During one phase, organizers reported that around 4 million people participated in the final prayer. Another phase included more than 3,000 foreign visitors from 76 countries. With so many people arriving in the same area, authorities introduced major traffic restrictions, redirected buses and heavy vehicles, increased security, and adjusted transportation around Tongi. The railway also becomes part of the story. During major Ijtema gatherings, special train services and additional stops at Tongi have been used to handle the extraordinary passenger demand. This helps explain some of the dramatic images of crowded stations and trains often associated with the event. But 2026 brought an unusual change. Bishwa Ijtema had been scheduled for January 22nd through January 24. Bangladesh's Home Ministry ordered that gathering suspended at the Tongi grounds ahead of the national election and referendum. Officials had previously said the event would instead be organized after the election, with a new date to be determined. That interruption reveals just how significant Bishwa Ijtema is. Organizing it is not simply about preparing a religious venue. Transportation, policing, roads, international visitors, and an entire section of the Dhaka metropolitan area can be affected. The Sundarbans, into the kingdom of the Bengal tiger. Leave the endless traffic of Dhaka behind, travel southwest toward the Bay of Bengal, and Bangladesh begins to look like another world. Roads give way to rivers. Buildings disappear behind dense vegetation. Soon, you enter the Sundarbans, an enormous maze of mangrove forest, tidal waterways, mudflats, and islands where land and water constantly compete for space. Stretching across Bangladesh and India, the Greater Sundarbans covers roughly 10,000 square kilometers. About 60% lies within Bangladesh. UNESCO describes it as the world's largest contiguous mangrove forest, and the Bangladeshi World Heritage Property alone covers nearly 140,000 hectares. But one animal has made this wilderness legendary: the Royal Bengal tiger. Bangladesh's latest tiger survey, released in 2024 and still the most recent national estimate available in 2026, counted 125 tigers in the country's Sundarbans. That was 11 more than the previous survey in 2018. Camera traps also photographed 21 tiger cubs, offering an encouraging sign for conservation. These tigers live in an environment unlike almost anywhere else. They move through dense mangroves, muddy islands, and tidal channels, and they are powerful swimmers. Yet seeing one in the wild is extremely difficult. Most visitors experience the Sundarbans from boats, watching the forest from a safe distance while searching for deer, monkeys, crocodiles, birds, and perhaps the footprints of a tiger along the muddy shore. The forest is also important to people. Fishing, honey collection, and other traditional livelihoods have long connected nearby communities to its resources. At the same time, the mangroves form a natural barrier against cyclones and storm surges. The Sundarbans is beautiful, but it is not a theme park. It is a wild, changing frontier where tides, predators, storms, and human communities exist remarkably close together. Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh's endless beach. After the mangrove wilderness of the Sundarbans, Bangladesh reveals another completely different landscape. On the southeastern coast, the crowded streets and river deltas open onto a vast horizon of sand and sea. This is Cox's Bazar, the country's most famous beach destination. Bangladesh's official tourism material describes the coastline here as stretching around 120 kilometers and promotes it as the world's longest uninterrupted natural sandy beach. Whether visitors come for that famous claim or simply for the scenery, the scale is impressive. At low tide, broad stretches of sand seem to continue toward the horizon. But Cox's Bazar is far more than a beach. Tourism supports a huge local economy of hotels, restaurants, transportation, shops, and small businesses. During Eid al-Fitr in 2025, local industry representatives reported more than 100,000 visitors arriving on some days. The city has more than 500 hotels, resorts, cottages, and guest houses, with accommodation capacity estimated at roughly 187,000 people. The crowds remain enormous in 2026, ahead of the 7-day Eid al-Fitr holiday. Local hotel operators predicted that between 500,000 and 700,000 tourists could visit Cox's Bazar during the following week. Travel farther south, and the landscape becomes quieter. Inani Beach is known for its coral stones and open coastline, while fishing communities reveal another side of life beside the Bay of Bengal. Boats return with their catches, seafood moves through local markets, and fishing remains closely connected to coastal livelihoods. This contrast makes Cox's Bazar remarkable. Bangladesh is often imagined through crowded cities, rivers, and monsoon floods. Yet here, the country suddenly opens onto an enormous blue horizon. For millions of Bangladeshis, Cox's Bazar is not simply a coastline. It is the place where one of the world's most densely populated countries finally seems to run out of land. Jamdani, fabric woven like a work of art. At first, a Jamdani sari may look like an elegant piece of fabric. But move closer and something remarkable appears. Many of those tiny flowers, geometric shapes, and elaborate patterns were not printed onto the cloth. They were woven into it by hand, thread by thread. Jamdani is one of Bangladesh's most celebrated textile traditions. The craft developed around Dhaka and is famous for producing lightweight, breathable fabric decorated with intricate motifs. Unlike mass-produced textiles, the designs are created directly on a handloom using a discontinuous weft technique. This means the decorative threads are carefully inserted while the fabric itself is being woven. The process is extraordinarily demanding. Depending on the complexity of the design, creating a high-quality Jamdani sari can require weeks or even months of patient work. Skilled weavers must repeatedly count threads and position each motif with remarkable precision. Traditionally, knowledge is passed from parents to children in home workshops, while master weavers can also train apprentices. In 2013, UNESCO added the traditional art of Jamdani weaving to the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. As of 2026, it remains one of Bangladesh's internationally recognized living cultural traditions. But this heritage faces a modern challenge. Research published in April 2026 warned that mechanization, fast fashion, and weakening intergenerational knowledge transfer are putting increasing pressure on the centuries-old craft. Handmade textiles require time and skilled labor, while machine-produced alternatives can be made much faster. That is what makes authentic Jamdani so extraordinary. Every complicated pattern represents countless movements of human hands in an age when machines can produce thousands of identical garments. Bangladesh still preserves a textile tradition where a single piece of fabric can carry weeks of work and generations of knowledge. Food, markets, and everyday street life. To discover the most human side of Bangladesh, forget the famous landmarks for a moment and follow the smell of food. In Dhaka, everyday life spills onto the streets, where markets, tiny tea stalls, restaurants, and roadside carts can remain busy from morning until late at night. Rice and fish form the foundation of traditional Bangladeshi cuisine. With hundreds of rivers, ponds, wetlands, and a long coastline, fish is deeply connected to both the economy and the dinner table. Recent fisheries data show just how enormous this industry has become. Bangladesh produced around 4.76 million metric tons of fish in 2023, including roughly 710,000 tons that were processed as dried fish. But the streets offer an entirely different experience. Walk through Dhaka, and you may encounter chalmuri, a spicy mixture built around puffed rice, along with crispy singara, piyaju, chotpoti, kebabs, seasonal paitha, and countless regional snacks. Dhaka's street food scene has also changed dramatically. Over roughly 2 decades, traditional roadside foods have been joined by burgers, pizza, momos, and other international influences, creating an unusual mixture of old and new. Then there is tea. Bangladesh produced about 94.9 million kilograms of tea in 2025, according to Tea Board data reported in 2026. Domestic demand is now estimated at roughly 85 to 90 million kilograms annually, meaning most Bangladeshi tea is consumed inside the country. Yet statistics cannot explain what a tiny cup of tea means on the street. Tea stalls are places to stop, talk, watch traffic, discuss the day, and meet friends. And perhaps this is the best place to end our journey. Beyond the floods, megacities, tigers, beaches, and crowded trains, Bangladesh is ultimately found in these ordinary moments. A busy market, a shared meal, a steaming cup of tea, and millions of people simply living their everyday lives. Bangladesh is a land of extraordinary contrasts, where crowded megacities meet endless rivers, ancient traditions survive beside modern development, and millions adapt to a constantly changing landscape. Beyond the headlines, its greatest story is the everyday life of its people.